This video is based on public domain materials from the United States Office of Strategic Services, OSS, and is produced under fair use for documentary analysis, commentary, and research purposes. We do not promote or endorse violence, sabotage, or military actions in any real-world context. Viewer discretion is advised. Interpret all material responsibly and within its proper historical framework. Operational Groups. Field Manual. Office of Strategic Services. This manual was originally issued by the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, on April 25, 1944, as part of their classified training material for select personnel. It is published here for historical and educational purposes only. The original text was intended for a highly specialized audience during World War II and contained sensitive operational guidelines. This edition does not contain classified information, and the handling or distribution of the material today is no longer subject to the same security regulations. Section 1. Introduction. 1. Scope and purpose of manual. This manual sets forth the authorized functions, operational principles, methods, and organization of operational groups, OGs, as a part of OSS operations. Its purpose is to guide strategic services personnel responsible for planning, training, and operations in the proper employment of OGs. 2. Definitions. A. Overall program for strategic services activities, a collection of objectives in order of priority, importance, within a theater or area. B. Objective, a main or controlling goal for accomplishment within a theater or area by strategic services as set forth in an overall program. C. Special program for strategic services activities, a statement setting forth the detailed missions assigned to one or more strategic services branches, designed to accomplish a given objective, together with a summary of the situation and the general methods of accomplishment of the assigned missions. D. Mission, a statement of purpose set forth in a special program for the accomplishment of a given objective. E. Operational plan, an amplification or elaboration of a special program containing the details and means of carrying out the specified activities. Task, a detailed operation, usually planned in the field, which contributes toward the accomplishment of a mission. G. Target, a place, establishment, group, or individual toward which activities or operations are directed. H. The field, all areas outside of the United States in which strategic services activities take place. Field base, an OSS headquarters in the field, designated by the name of the city in which it is established, for example, Strategic Services, Field Base, Cairo. J. Advanced or subbase, an additional base established by and responsible to an OSS field base. K. Operative, an individual employed by and responsible to the OSS and assigned under special programs to field activity. L'agent, an individual recruited in the field who is employed and directed by an OSS operative or by a field or sub-base. M. Resistance groups, individuals associated together in enemy-held territory to oppose the enemy by any or all means short of military operations, for example, by sabotage, non-cooperation. In guerrillas, an organized band of individuals in enemy-held territory, indefinite as to number, which conducts against the enemy irregular operations, including those of a military or quasi-military nature. 3. Operational groups. A. Definition: Operational groups. A small, uniformed party of specially qualified soldiers, organized, trained, and equipped to accomplish the specific missions set forth below. B. Authority. Among the functions assigned by Joint Chiefs of Staff Directive to the Office of Strategic Services are the following, which are applicable to operational groups. The organization and conduct of guerrilla warfare. 2. The use of the organization and facilities of the OSS by the theater commander in his theater or area in any manner and to the maximum extent desired by him. C. Missions of operational groups. 1. To organize, train, and equip resistance groups in order to convert them into guerrillas, and to serve as the nuclei of such groups in operations against the enemy, as directed by the theater commander. In addition, under authority granted to the theater commander by the JCS directive, Operational groups may be used to execute independent operations against enemy targets as directed by the theater commander. Section 2. Organization. 4. Organization in Washington. A. Operational groups are organized in Washington along strictly military lines. There is a commanding officer, responsible to the Strategic Services Operations Officer, and a staff consisting of an executive officer, an S1 personnel, an S2 intelligence and security, an S3 plans and training, an S4 supply, and a medical officer, chief surgeon and medical supply officer. There is also a training staff of variable size consisting of semi-permanent senior instructors and junior instructors who are assigned to field duty with OGs after they have trained their successors. BOG. Headquarters Washington has no direct command over OGs in the field, since they are under control and direction of the theater commander through the Strategic Services Officer. The primary function of the OG organization in Washington is to service OGs in the field with trained personnel and supplies. OG Headquarters, Washington, also has the administrative responsibility of maintaining a coordinated chronological record of OG activities. 5. Organization in the field. A. The Operational Group. Table of Organization. The Operational Group, consisting of 4 officers and 30 men, is the basic unit of OG organization. An OG normally consists of 2 sections of 2 squads each. The TO of a typical OG is as follows. Captain, 1, commanding. First Lieutenant, 3, including. Small black square emoji, second in command of the OG, 1. Small black square emoji, section leader, 2. Technical sergeant, 2, including. Small black square emoji, second in command of sections, 2. Staff sergeant, 6, including. Small black square emoji, squad leader, 4. Small black square emoji, medical technician, 2. Corporal or technician, 5th grade, 22 including. Small black square emoji, scout, 16. Small black square emoji, code clerk, 1. Small black square emoji, courier, 1. Small black square emoji, radio operator, 4. Small black square emoji, aggregate, all ranks, 34. 2. Table of equipment. In addition to standard Army clothing, OG members are issued special garments appropriate to the climate and terrain in their country of operations. Each operational group has a special table of equipment, TE, showing the arms and other articles to be carried. This TE varies with the theater for which the OG is bound and the missions it is expected to accomplish. 3. SS equipment. A. SS weapons and demolition equipment are issued to OGs through SS supply channels in the theater, as required by their missions. B. Communications equipment carried by OGs consists of SS radio sets, which are issued through SS supply channels in the theater. 4. Motorized vehicles. Although motorized vehicles are not part of the organic equipment of an OG, they may be issued in the theater when required by a mission and when it is feasible to introduce and maintain such vehicles in the area of operations. B. The Field Service Headquarters. 1. Table of Organization. The Field Service Headquarters, FSHQ, is the next higher echelon of command above the operational group. An FSHQ is roughly comparable to the Army's battalion headquarters, and the FSHQ commanding officer directs the operations of from 2 to 5 OGs. An FSHQ is normally located outside of, but in proximity to, the enemy-held territory in which several OGs are operating. However, when conditions permit, FSHQ will be established in the area of operations. The TO consists of the following. Major, 1. Commanding. Captain, 1. Medical officer. First Lieutenant, 3, including. Small black square emoji, adjutant, 1. Small black square emoji, communications officer, 1. Small black square emoji, supply officer, 1. First sergeant, 1. Technical sergeant, 6, including. Small black square emoji, signal non-commissioned officer, 3. Small black square emoji, supply non-commissioned officer. 2. Small black square emoji, replacement. 1. Corporal or technician, 5th grade, 16, including. Small black square emoji, armorer. 1. Small black square emoji, automobile mechanic. 1. Small black square emoji, clerk typist. 2. Small black square emoji, co-clerk, courier. 6. Small black square emoji, radio operator. 6. Small black square emoji, aggregate, all ranks, 28. 2. Table of equipment. In addition to standard Army clothing, FSQ personnel are issued special garments appropriate to the climate and terrain in their country of operations. Each FSQ has a special TE, showing the arms and other articles to be carried. This TE varies with the theater in which the FHQ is to operate and the missions it is expected to execute. 3. SS equipment. A. SS weapons and demolitions equipment are issued to an FSHQ as required through SS supply channels in the theater. B. Communications equipment for an FSHQ consists of SS radio sets, which are issued through SS supply channels in the theater. 4. Motorized vehicles. Motorized vehicles are part of the organic equipment of an FSHQ and are issued through SS and military supply channels in the theater, provided it is feasible to introduce and maintain such vehicles in the area of FSHQ operations. C. Area headquarters. Headquarters at OSS Field Base. 1. Table of organization. An area headquarters, AHQ, or headquarters at OSS Field Base, is the next higher echelon of command above the FSHQ. It operates under direction and control of the SS officer at the OSS Field Base. The normal TO of an AHQ is as follows. Lieutenant Colonel, 1 OG, Commanding Officer. Captain, 1, Executive Officer. First Lieutenant, 1, Operations Officer. First Sergeant, 1, Technical Sergeant, 1, Signal Non-Commissioned Officer. Corporal or Technician, 5th grade, 3, including. Small black square emoji, Clerk Typist, 1. Small black square emoji, Co-Clerk, Courier, 1. Small black square emoji, Motorcyclist, 1. Small black square emoji, Aggregate, all ranks, 8. 2. Table of equipment. In addition to the standard Army clothing issued to personnel of the AHQ, each AHQ has a special TE showing the arms and other articles to be carried. This TE is variable, depending on the theater of operations. 3. SS equipment. A. Stockpiles of SS weapons and demolitions equipment are normally set up at an AHQ to supply field service headquarters and OGs in areas of operations. B. Since the AHQ is located at an OSS field base, communications to and from AHQ are generally handled by the Field Base Message Center. 4. Motorized vehicles. Motorcycles, trucks, and trailers needed for operations at AHQ are supplied through SS and military supply channels in the theater. Section 3. Personnel. 6. Organization for recruitment. A. Members of OGs procured in the United States are officers or enlisted men who have been inducted into the Army through regular channels. Under War Department approval and within War Department allotment of grades and ratings, selection is made of such personnel by trained interviewers of the Personnel Procurement Branch, PPB, OSS, according to specifications submitted by Headquarters, Operational Groups, Washington. PPB interviewers examine the civil and military records of likely candidates and hold personal interviews. Candidates who are acceptable are ordered to an SS area to begin training, pending security clearance. This procedure in no way violates security, as the training initially given is an extension of Army training. No specialized strategic services instruction is given until the security check has been completed. B. It will sometimes be necessary to procure OG personnel directly in the theater where they will operate. This procedure is applicable when persons cannot be found in the United States who are qualified in a particular language, knowledge of a certain locality, and other essentials. When an OG must be staffed in the theater, the work of procurement will usually be done by a cadre from the U.S., consisting normally of 2 officers and 5 men, with the following TO: 1 captain, 1 first lieutenant, 1 first sergeant, 1 staff sergeant, 1 sergeant, 2 radio operator technicians, 4th or 5th grade, specification serial number 777. This cadre will attempt to recruit and train in the theater sufficient personnel to comprise standard OGs of 4 officers and 30 men each. However, the TO may be reduced in strength for OGs recruited in the field depending on the availability of qualified personnel. Civilians recruited for OGs in the field will be enlisted or commissioned in the Army of the U.S. and will wear its uniform. The procurement of all personnel for OGs within theaters must be within the limitations of authorized grades and ratings. 7. Qualifications of OG personnel. The following considerations will govern the selection of personnel for operational groups. Willingness to perform hazardous duty. Because of the nature of their assignments, all members of OGs must be willing to undertake unusual and dangerous risks. Candidates must be adequately informed of the hazards they may expect and must be accepted only on a volunteer basis. B. Language ability. It is normally preferable that the candidate speak the required language as a native tongue or with great fluency. In some cases, however, for example, radio operators, language facility must be sacrificed for other valuable qualifications. By familiarity with country of operations. Since OGs may have to enter territory without benefit of a friendly local reception committee, previous acquaintance with the country of operations is highly desirable, especially if such acquaintance is of recent date. OG personnel with friends or relatives who might provide concealment and guidance are especially valuable. D. Skills. As many men as possible in each OG should be qualified in certain specialized fields. Previous training on radio, demolitions, weapons, scouting, or fieldcraft is a particularly desirable qualification in a candidate. E. Physical condition. The rigorous character of their work demands that OG personnel satisfy the same physical requirements as men accepted for parachute training in the Army. F. Political sympathies. Persons charged with procurement of OG personnel must use great care in the case of individuals who are sympathetic to particular political movements or factions within the country of their origin. The readiness and ability of such individuals to get along harmoniously with the movement or faction in the area of operations must be carefully determined in advance. In certain areas, however, where disputes are bitter and the areas of rivals not delineated, it is more desirable to staff an OG with American citizens whose language ability is somewhat imperfect rather than with ex-natives of the area who have pronounced political attachments. G. Character traits. While the risks involved tend to make OG work appeal to young men, the success of OG assignments is not the result of daring and bravado alone. Accordingly, candidates will be selected whose past records, civilian and military, give evidence of stability and good judgment. H. Army training. Except for certain specially qualified persons recruited in the field, see paragraph 6, candidates must have completed basic training before being accepted for OG work. Candidates who have also had combat training are preferable. Section 4. Training. 8. General procedure. OG training is an intensive course of specialized instruction in the weapons, techniques, and methods of operation appropriate for a small, self-sufficient band of men who may be required to live and fight in the manner of guerrillas. OG training comes under the general supervision of the schools and training branch, but the actual instruction is given by OG personnel based on schedules drawn up by the OG training officer. An OG is assembled prior to the start of training according to the common foreign language of its members. Thereafter, the group trains, lives, and operates as a unit. The officers who will lead an OG in the field assist in training its personnel. The training period in the U.S. is normally 3 weeks. 1 additional week is allowed for the clearance of administrative details. The group is then ready for embarkation to the theater of operations. An OG is rarely used immediately upon its arrival overseas. The normal time delay involved is utilized for further training, as dictated by the particular mission to be performed. This training will emphasize tactical problems and may include parachute jumping or amphibious operations if either of these means of entry is to be used. Overseas training is usually conducted by OG officers. 9. Training objectives. The objectives of OG training are as follows. A. To train specially qualified bilingual officers and enlisted men in the techniques and skills required to execute their prescribed missions in enemy or enemy-occupied territory. B. To weld this personnel into an efficient, mobile, self-sufficient unit capable of 1. Organizing and training local resistance groups with a view to converting them into guerrillas. 2. Supplying such guerrillas with arms, ammunition, demolitions, communication equipment, food, medical supplies, and money. 3. Serving as nuclei in planning and execution by native elements of attacks against enemy forces or installations, as directed by the theater commander. 4. Executing independent operations, usually of a hit-and-run character, against enemy targets as directed by the theater commander. C. To develop in each member of an operational group the physical strength, individual initiative, and ability to improvise, which his missions will demand. 10. Curriculum. A. Members of operational groups should receive adequate training in the following subjects. Map study, including map sketching, map and compass problems, direction finding by field expedients, study of aerial photos. 2. Scouting and patrolling, including instruction and practice in use of physical cover, reconnaissance, signaling, infiltration. 3. Close combat, armed and unarmed, including knife fighting. 4. Physical conditioning, including swimming, toughening exercises, and obstacle course runs. 5. Fieldcraft, including camouflage, living off the land, preparation of shelter and food. 6. Hygiene and camp sanitation. 7. Tactics, including basic maneuvers and tactical principles, discussion and practice in small group operations and methods of guerrilla warfare, day and night problems, planning and execution of airborne raids, street and village fighting, jungle fighting, when applicable. 8. Demolitions, including explosives, incendiaries, booby traps, field expedients, delayed action charges, multiple charges, charges for special purposes. 9. Weapons, including function, stripping, cleaning, and firing of. Small black square emoji, 30 calories. M1 rifle. Small black square emoji. 30 calories. Carbine. Small black square emoji. 30 calories. Machine gun. Small black square emoji. 50 calories. Machine gun. Small black square emoji. Browning. Automatic rifle. Small black square emoji. 45 calories. Pistol. Small black square emoji. Sten gun. Small black square emoji. 45 calories. Submachine gun. Small black square emoji. Grenade launcher. Small black square emoji. 2.36-inch anti-tank rocket launcher. Bazooka. Small black square emoji. Marlin submachine gun. Small black square emoji. 60 millimeters. Mortar. Small black square emoji. 81 millimeters. Mortar. Small black square emoji. Hand grenades. Small black square emoji. Also, the function and firing of enemy weapons with which the group may come into contact. 10. Principles and practice of first aid, especially under combat conditions. 11. Enemy motor transportation, including operation and repair of enemy motorcycles, trucks, automobiles, half-tracks, and other vehicles with which the group may come into contact. 12. Enemy organization, including lectures on enemy military and political structure, uniforms, insignia, procedure in interrogating prisoners, methods of espionage and counter-espionage. 13. Methods of organizing and training civilians in the techniques of guerrilla warfare, indoctrination as to correct general attitude and behavior toward civilians. 14. Identification of enemy and allied planes, tanks, and other vehicles. 15. Care of clothing and equipment. 16. Security, including precautions to be observed in the U.S., in the theater, and in the area of operations. 17. Problems of supply, including the procedure of procuring supplies from OSS stocks, methods of packaging, and the details regarding the introduction and receipt of cargo into the zone of operations. B. The basic training of OG's preparation will be supplemented in the theater immediately prior to operations by a detailed briefing on topography, battle order, friendly and hostile groups that may be encountered, and other matters pertinent to the operation to be performed. Ort C. In addition to the training outlined in paragraph above, radio operators for each OG should receive intensive practice in code, operational procedure, and repair of their equipment. 11. Maintenance of morale. In view of the extreme hazards of OG operations, maintenance of morale assumes a special importance. Every effort should be made throughout the training period to keep the aggressive spirit and confidence of OG personnel at a high level. The men should be kept steadily occupied, either with training tasks or with organized group recreation. Following the completion of their training, OGs will be shipped to their theater of operations as expeditiously as possible to avoid the staleness and dissatisfaction which inevitably result from idleness or a monotonous repetition of training. All means available will be used to foster intimate friendship, mutual confidence, and team play among members of the group, and a strong feeling of trust between officers and men. Section V. Operations. 12. General. AOGs operate only in enemy or enemy-occupied territory. Their primary function is in connection with guerrillas. They have no operational function in neutral territory. B. The following operational distinctions exist between the OG and SO branches. 1. While SO operating personnel may or may not be members of the armed forces, may or may not be in uniform, and operate as individuals or in small groups, OG personnel are always members of the armed forces, always operate in uniform, and conduct operations as a unit. When any individual OG personnel is selected to perform SO tasks and function, he will operate undercover and will become part of SO personnel. 2 OGs, being military organizations, operate in accordance with military principles and on occasion will deliberately engage hostile armed forces. On the other hand, SO personnel in enemy-held territory operate undercover, except in unusual circumstances, and attempt to avoid all contact with enemy forces. 3. Both OG and SO personnel deal with resistance groups. SO carries on a strictly covert relationship with such groups and organizes them for such tasks as attritional sabotage. OGs, on the other hand, train, organize, and equip resistance groups to operate as guerrillas against enemy forces. 13. Types of OG operations. A. As set forth in paragraph 3, AOGs have two broad missions. These missions determine the pattern of their operations. 1. The primary mission of OGs is to organize, train, and equip resistance groups in order to convert them into guerrillas, and to serve as the nuclei of such groups in operations against the enemy as directed by the theater commander. A. Organizing. Normally, before OGs enter a territory, contact must have been established with resistance elements and their potentialities and needs for supplies and equipment ascertained. This can be accomplished by use of OSS clandestine agents, primarily SO, or by representatives abroad of resistance elements who are brought out for this purpose. Such resistance elements range from small, loosely organized, and poorly equipped bands of individuals to large quasi-military organizations with insufficient equipment. When organization is inadequate, the main function of OGs is to weld the individuals into a guerrilla unit that can contribute to the support of military operations. Organizing such guerrilla units may involve selecting leaders, assigning individuals or units to various areas of operation, constituting demolition or sabotage teams as the situation may require, and providing for communications and courier services. While providing guidance and overall direction is an OG responsibility, the actual leadership will usually be entrusted to local individuals. Where guerrilla activity is already well developed, the OG's work of organizing consists primarily of coordinating the operations of guerrilla bands with allied military plans. In certain areas, OGs may encounter guerrillas whose effectiveness is reduced by partisan differences. Although OGs will avoid local political controversy and will emphasize their essentially military role, they may, by their ability to furnish supplies, be effective in achieving a measure of coordinated effort among estranged groups. B. Training. The work of OGs will be mainly with civilians who are largely ignorant of military discipline, tactics, and weapons. Briefly stated, the training objective of OGs is to transform these resistors into efficient guerrillas. Within the limitations of local conditions, OGs must find ways to instruct and give practice to the Patriots in such subjects as the use of weapons, close combat, scouting and patrolling, demolition, radio operation, first aid, sabotage, and physical conditioning. For obvious reasons, this training should, if possible, be conducted in areas unoccupied by enemy troops, such as isolated mountain or forest regions. One of the most important OG training tasks will be indoctrinating civilians in the necessity of avoiding premature action and preserving their numbers for coordinated use at the proper time. C. Equipping need for additional equipment will often arise after arrival of OGs in the zone of operations. OG officers will transmit requisitions or requests for requirements either to their field service headquarters, if established, or the OSS field base. D. Serving as operational nuclei for guerrilla warfare. In theaters where active military operations are being conducted, the plans covering guerrilla operations, including supply, must be approved by the theater commander. In areas where military operations are not being conducted, the nature and timing of guerrilla operations conducted by native groups under OG direction will be coordinated insofar as possible with the desires of the theater commander. In some areas, it may be desirable to attack industrial or other targets at the earliest possible moment. In other regions, the theater commander may consider it essential for the groups to remain inactive until they can be employed in support of Allied military operations. In either case, the authorized function of OGs is to serve as the core of a larger group composed predominantly of members of the local population. As indicated in paragraph 5, OGs are subdivided into sections and squads. These smaller units will attempt to ensure proper leadership and guidance for the native guerrillas whom they have trained. Typical operations by these groups might include tasks such as attacks on and demolition of a powerhouse or oil dump, as well as the marking and holding of landing beaches and cutting of enemy communications. 2. The secondary mission of OGs is to execute operations, usually of a hit-and-run character, against enemy targets as directed by the theater commander. It will be seen that this mission takes in a broad range of activity. Thus, OGs might conceivably be used by the theater commander to attack an enemy headquarters, harass an enemy withdrawal, destroy enemy stores, blow up a factory, demolish a radar installation, or any one of a number of similar tasks. It is characteristic of OG operations under this category that they may or may not be closely tied into large-scale military operations. 14. Operational problems. A. Contact with resistance groups. OGs assigned to organize and train resistance elements into guerrillas usually will enter the area of operations only after preliminary contact through clandestine agents with such groups has been established and arrangements made for reception of the OGs. This contact may be made by SO or SI operatives or agents. B. Entry into area of operations. The manner of entry will be determined by the terrain of the area of operations, the tightness of enemy surveillance, and the transportation available. Entry may be made by parachute, by small boat or submarine, or by infiltration of an enemy area on foot. OGs will be given special training in the theater, appropriate to the means of entry chosen. OGs will normally be received and guided at the point in time of entry by sympathizers with whom contact has previously been established, paragraph above. C. Communications. As soon after entry as is feasible, OGs will make radio contact with FSHQ if established, or with the base according to an arranged schedule for periodic future contact. Communications will be maintained by FSHQ with all OGs functioning in the area of operations which it controls, as well as with area headquarters at the field base. Messages to and from area headquarters are handled by the field base message center. OGs will not normally attempt to communicate with any higher echelon than FSHQ. When an OG is divided into squads which operate in separate parts of the same area, contact may have to be maintained with the commanding officer of the group by radio. However, because of the risks of location by the enemy, radio traffic should be kept to a minimum. Elements of an OG may find it possible to keep in touch with each other more securely by establishing a courier service, utilizing local civilians, rather than by using radio. OGs in enemy-held territory will normally operate on foot, although in some isolated areas, enemy surveillance may be so light as to permit a limited use of horses or even local motorized vehicles. D. Concealment. Since OG personnel operate in uniform, they must rely on concealment and secrecy to safeguard their operations. Concealment is of particular importance to OGs because they are small in number and can be severely weakened by the loss of even a few men. Prior to their entry, OGs should be issued camouflage clothing appropriate to the season and terrain. OGs will be obliged in most cases to avoid cities and towns where the enemy or his agents may be encountered. Semi-permanent concealment in mountainous or forested areas may be available, and native sympathizers will be induced to provide hiding places in their homes and barns when this is feasible. In some areas, enemy controls may be so rigid as to compel OGs to keep on the move, changing bivouac sites frequently. Security. The enemy has established efficient espionage and counter-espionage organizations in all the occupied countries. These networks, coupled with the enemy-controlled local police and local informers, will frequently be more dangerous to the security of OGs than will the enemy's regular troops. Before OGs enter an area, all possible investigations will be made as to the security of the resistance groups with whom OGs are working, but OGs must be alert to the danger of possible penetration by enemy agents. OGs should have contact only with those individuals whom resistance group leaders can personally vouch for as loyal. So far as possible, the location and operations of OG personnel should be kept secret from the families of resistance group members who are being trained and organized by OGs. Supply OGs usually carry into an area of operations only such equipment as they need for their own use. OGs will survey the local status of supply and, basing estimates upon needs previously reported and consequent preliminary plans for supply of the resistance forces, will report any additional immediate requirements by priorities. They should also report on whether the previously agreed place and means for introduction of supplies is feasible and should furnish necessary modifications. Section V. Cooperation of OG within OSS and with other organizations. 15. Cooperation with the intelligence service. The planning and execution of OG missions are based upon reliable intelligence, furnished primarily by the SI and X2 branches and the Research and Analysis branch, R&A. Liaison between OG and these branches is maintained in Washington and in the theaters. It is most important in the theaters because all operational planning for OGs is done there. R&A provides basic intelligence with respect to topography, industrial targets, the structure of enemy military and political organization, and the attitudes of the people in the area of OG operations. For briefing purposes, SI furnishes up to the minute intelligence concerning locations of enemy units and installations in the area of operations, the strength, location, and personnel of guerrilla and resistance groups that will be encountered, and such other data as is pertinent to the mission at hand. X2 supplements this with intelligence regarding enemy espionage agents and networks which may jeopardize OG operations. Although procurement of intelligence is not normally an OG task, OGs functioning behind enemy lines will frequently obtain information by reconnaissance and from the local population, which will be relayed through channels to the appropriate OSS and military intelligence organizations. 16. Cooperation with other OSS operations, branches. OG must work in closest collaboration with SO. The integration of OG operations with this branch is achieved in Washington through the Strategic Services Operations Officer and in the field by the Strategic Services Officer for each theater. BOG operations must be largely dependent upon SO operatives and agents who develop preliminary contacts with and make preliminary investigations of underground resistance groups prior to the entry of OGs into an area of operations. 17. Cooperation with similar agencies of allied nations. Cooperation as to any joint activities with other allied organizations conducting irregular warfare will be arranged through the Strategic Services Officer. Section 7. Planning. 18. Planning in Washington. Special programs covering OG activities in the theater of operations are incorporated into OSS overall programs. In the overall program for a given theater, the objectives for all the OG branches concerned are set forth in order of importance. The special OG programs state the missions to be performed by OG to attain the objectives listed in the overall program, present a brief summary of the situation bearing on the missions in question, and prescribe in a general way the plan to be followed. These special OG programs are drawn up jointly by the Strategic Services Planning Staff and the OG branch and are presented to the Strategic Services Planning Group for approval. Upon approval by the planning group, the programs are submitted to the Director, OSS, for his consideration and approval before being transmitted to the theater or senior American commander in the field through the Strategic Services Officer. B. Upon approval of theater commanders, OG, programs establish priorities for OG operations in the field. In conformity with these programs, OG prepares detailed operational plans. C. When plans covering OG activities in the field are made which are not in furtherance of missions set forth in special programs, such plans are reported to OSS, Washington, for consideration and incorporation into an appropriate program consistent with security control. 19. Planning in theaters of operations. Operational planning for OGs is performed in the field in the implementation of missions of approved special programs covering OG activities. Such planning should cover the details listed in paragraph 14. The nature of OG operations makes teamwork essential and requires that planning be executed in the most minute detail possible. 20. Checklist. In Appendix A, there are summarized in the form of a checklist a number of the more important points that have been presented in this manual. This checklist may serve as a brief list of reminders to OG personnel to assist them in the course of their work. Appendix A. 2. Operational Groups Field Manual, Strategic Services. Checklist for OG Operations. This checklist is designed to assist the OG branch, Washington, and operational groups in the field in planning, training, and operating. For G, Washington. 1. Procurement of personnel. A. Is the request for procurement and training of personnel for OGs approved by proper authority? B. Does the allotment of officers and enlisted men to OG permit the procurement of the numbers requested by the Strategic Services Officer? C. Are qualified individuals available in the U.S. Army? D. Can suitable personnel be procured in the time available? E. Have detailed requests been submitted to the Personnel Procurement Branch, OSS, for procurement of personnel? F. Is the OSS area in which the OGs are initially to be received properly staffed and equipped to receive them? G. Have the required numbers of suitable personnel been procured and dispatched to the holding area? H. Have personnel been procured for field service headquarters? Tour, training. A. Have all members of the OGs received basic military training? B. Are suitable OG instructors available and assigned? C. Has the training schedule been coordinated with the schools and training branch? D. Does the standard curriculum for OGs require the addition of specialized training for a particular group? If so, where is it to be accomplished? E. Is the training area prepared to receive the OGs? F. Are there any unqualified or unsuitable individuals who should be dropped from the OGs? Are replacements available? G. Has training accomplished its objectives? H. Are abilities properly recognized by the assignment of ranks and grades within the groups? I. Has the Strategic Services Officer been informed of the training given OGs to be assigned to his theater? J. Has personnel of Field Service Headquarters been given adequate training? 3. Supply and equipment. A. Has each member of the OGs received complete standard Army clothing and equipment, as well as special items of individual equipment prescribed? B. Has each OG received complete equipment as prescribed by its approved TE? C. Has each Field Service Headquarters received the equipment and supplies prescribed by its TE? D. Has each area headquarters received the equipment and supplies prescribed by its TE? E. Is special OSS equipment required for the OGs available in the theater? E. If so, have requisitions been received, and when will the equipment and supplies be shipped? Has the Strategic Services Officer been given complete information? F. Is any equipment requisitioned unavailable? When will it be available? Has the Strategic Services Officer been informed? G. What is the schedule of future shipments of supplies and equipment? H. Is a table of equipment sent to the port of embarkation with each OG? 4. Morale. A. What is the state of morale in the OGs during training? B. Is personal contact maintained with the trainees, and are facilities available for handling individual morale cases? C. Are the trainees conscious of the seriousness and the importance of the work? D. Are periods for rest, relaxation, and diversion provided? E. Has the schedule been arranged so that there will be no prolonged periods of idleness? F. Will the OGs depart for the theater promptly after the training period? If early departure is impossible, have further training or useful duties been scheduled? 5. Security. A. Has each member of the OGs received a security check while at the holding area and prior to his specialized OG training? B. Has the trainee evidenced a sufficient appreciation of security and training? C. Has each member of the OGs received a security check for overseas service? 6. Transportation. A. Have all arrangements been completed to transport the OGs to the theater promptly after training is completed? 1. Theater commander's approval. 2. TOs and TEs complete? 3. Inoculations and physical examinations completed? B. Has an OG roster been sent to the Strategic Services Officer? D. Has the Strategic Services Officer been informed when additional personnel requested will be transported? 7. Reports. A. Are reports on OG operations received from the field? B. Do reports indicate that the operations of OGs conform to approved strategic services overall and special programs? C. Are the reports from the field complete and in the prescribed form? Checklist. For OGs, theater. 1. Operations. A. Do the projected operations conform to approved strategic services overall and special programs? B. Has the operational plan been approved and coordinated by proper authority? C. Is all available intelligence considered and plans kept up to date? D. Has a system of supply been determined? 2. Personnel. A. Is Field Service Headquarters present and organized to administer control over OGs? B. Are the OGs up to strength? If not, can the required additional personnel be procured in the theater? Is the organization of OGs complete and in conformity with the TO? D. Have the personnel of the OGs been inspected individually to determine their morale and physical fitness? 3. Training. A. Have the OGs received all specialized training required for the tasks assigned? B. Has the training of specialists been adequate to enable them to perform their individual duties? C. Has the training of the personnel of Field Service Headquarters and Area Headquarters prepared these organizations properly to perform their functions? 4. Supply and equipment. A. Are the OGs, Field Service Headquarters, and Area Headquarters fully equipped in conformity with the TEs? B. Is the required special OSS equipment available? If not, have requisitions been submitted? When will it be received? C. Is the individual equipment of the OGs complete and in order? D. Has a detailed supply plan been made for each task? 5. Reports. A. Have detailed reports, within the limits of security control, been sent to OSS, Washington,